Damn, son, where'd you find this? A King Major exclusive. Take it away, meme rap legend. Fuck with your boy, Trapaholics. What's up, people? It's King Major here. Look, so I want to talk about the current events. I usually don't talk about political things, and I know a deep bit about the current trending politics, namely the Great Awakening things, the oversight committees on UFOs, the MK Ultra, the lifestyle and deep state analysis of that and therein. It's all on my channel. You can check it out. And be sure to like and subscribe wherever you are at. And look, I wanted to make this video because I saw this tweet from Mark Flynn, and he's talking about the storm is here, and he brings up all the criticisms that I would. So it's something that many on its face value would be excited about, but that's just the concern at it, because it's who it is and who he's connected to. Donald Trump, and I'm not for or against in every strict sense as a politician. I'm not left or right, and that goes into my greater point that Donald Trump appears to, with his own moneyed interest of the tri-state business elites, the moneyed and religious interests involved with Chabad Lubavitch and other Jewish nationals, and extreme Hasidic movements to create their end times Mashiach shit. I mean, basically, they had this whole thing to where it looks like it's shaping up because they basically culture poisoned the conspiracy and alternative media. They looked at that audience, wanted to cater to it, because remember, Donald Trump professed to be a blue dog Democrat in the 90s and shit. So this was all a plot of the modern day to go against the woke culture as a counterculture. And he appealed to the heads of the mainstream of the right eventually, but his base was the credible outsider dynamic. Excuse me. So, but the point is that he apparently, I think, based on how everyone switched from the left and the right, is all the same bird. Alex Jones was saying it, all the big media was saying it in the conspiracy and investigative journalism. But then you noticed once Trump came and started his wedge issues, then they started to say it's the Democrats and the Republicans are at least trying. That was always Alex Jones's cop-out, that basically to make it seem like he's not getting this whole institutional money, was to say that, basically that the Republicans have done some bad things, folks, but the Democrats are way worse. And that's like, he's just become a comedic character, and he even says that anymore. And I don't even know if his original intentions were pure or otherwise, but that's the whole point. He got to the people that are like jokes, like Alex Jones, who still had a poll, and certain people believe in him. But it's dangerous because that whole movement of low IQ, lower tier people who don't really fact check, and the guy says some truths, but he's a gimmick, or they're deliberate disinfo agents. It's a problem. Like talking about that Project Zephyr, Project Pogo theory, where they just went through and planted their own media spies throughout everything. And the Friends of Chabad, Jared Kushner, you got Joshua Kushner on there, because Joshua can equate to Jesus or Yeshua, and usually was a traditional title in the beyond the Second Temple wave Judaism to discuss a king to be in certain circles, such as the Lawrence Gardner research within the Holy Grail mythos. He went in extensive detail into the culture and mystics of like the Melchizedek order and the Essenes. But that's just it. Those types of groups, you've got Pete Hegseth with his Knights Templar tattoos and his more abrasive aspects. These are madmen, ladies and gentlemen. They are madmen like the TV show Wolf of Wall Street types that are basically the spawn of the business plot of the 1930s. And this was when business titans at the time had basically gotten together to install a corporate fascist dictatorship over the United States by overthrowing the U.S. president. They got foiled simply because Smedley Butler was one of the military officials they tried to get on board, and basically he snitched and told Congress. Then Congress investigated and basically found out the premise was more or less true, but there wasn't enough on any individual after investigation to point enough for jail time for pretty much any of them. I mean, there might have been one or two, let's be honest, but the business plot was a verified documented phenomena And when it failed, it's awfully funny that this was the rise of Adolf Hitler. And I'm not for or against Adolf Hitler, you know. I'm not brainwashed to see him as a villain, but I don't worship him in a cult, you know. That has to do with people that infiltrate the media, like I was saying. You know, these types all seem to have a similar recurring theme. The themes that was expressed during Donald Trump's 2016 campaign and the Alexander Dugin movement that infiltrated the alt-right when it wasn't bad. It was race realism and having a defend the culture narrative. It wasn't nearly the boogeyman they made it out to be. It was palatable, but it was decentralized. They made these head figures paid and funded by Alexander Dugin and other types, and these Russian pro-alt-right, the whole alt-right phenomena, where it basically got paid to more caricatures and extremists that worshipped Hitler and talked about the Jews. But, you got things like 51 documents by Lenny Brenner, who basically had documented before, during, and after the alleged Shoah that these things had occurred. I don't go on talking about narratives pro or against the notions of the Holocaust. I'm not here to discuss that, but I do find it very suspicious that the name itself is called Burnt Offering. That's why some of them are the Jews sometimes distinctly call it the Shoah. But that's another thing, the Talmud goes into what the greater things we're talking about, and the infiltrations into the military-industrial complex and anchor baby Jews going in to basically infiltrate us through the military ranks, going into higher up, like generals and stars and shit. Basically, these people have a radical view of basically enslaving the nations, or goyim, and establishing a 7 Noahide law status, because the inherent nature of what Judaism represents would become so apparent. The weird thing about these Hasidic national extremists is that the Tanakh does not support monotheism, and Yahweh Elohim is not El Elyon, or the Most High El, so he should not even be considered even the highest Elohim or deity within the pantheon of the Canaanite structure that the Judeans and Israelites had developed from. It's a foreign element to everything from that, including the fostering of this monotheism by the Roman church elite. And this goes to my other greater point about the madmen. I'm establishing in this so far that there are several elements. You see the Heritage Foundation. These madmen radicals, these religious fanatics of not just Judaism, because like I said, I know Jews, everyday people types. And they're not the cartoonish villain. They just have these bizarre views based on their religion. But the same could be said for literally anybody. But there is a powerful threat within this Hasidic ultra-nationalist terrorist movement of Chabad-like thinking and finance and power. And with a president that's, basically starting to question his life, and basically the chaos magician Donald Trump, the elite bloodline protecting the Epstein class, and my let's go golfing and start business plot 2.0. Because it's awfully funny on the final note on the business plot. It's awfully funny that once the business plot fails in the early 1930s, you see the flourishing of Adolf Hitler and his ultra-nationalist National Socialist movement. The same, because they were never prosecuted. Ladies and gentlemen, these people were not prosecuted. And that's a problem. Because they continue onward. These are their children. These are their grandchildren. Donald Trump is wealth class. Kushner, wealth class. Tied to religious fanatic groups like, all of these groups. I mean, I have family members of the Knights Templar, the Oddfellows, and Freemasons. It's not a monolith. What you believe about the boogeyman nature of Freemasonry has to do with the anti-Masonic movement, because, a sect of Freemasonry basically killed a guy, and it was high profile, and propaganda started spiking the fears of Freemasonry. That goes into Freemasonry, 3 bars of canon Freemasonry with the some consider truthful hairs to it, with the Scottish Rite of 32 and the potential 33. But that, I have these people around me, but none of them have cross tattoos talking about Christian nationalism. Do you feel me? My people's in the Springfield area, Springfield, Ohio. It's just natural to have a family and community here. It's kind of the cornfields, you feel me? These are bloodline Commonwealth families. You know, Skelton's not just an everyday bloodline, you feel me? I'm not saying that every one of us is something, but when you really study coat of arms... But I'm explaining about myself because it furthers the point of what I'm trying to say. You or I can have affiliation, or family that is, and we're not even they're not extremists. These people clearly are. They're people with fragile egos and want dinner plates from any amount of money, and there's Washington and the pro-Israeli lobby's influence on your senators with AIPAC and everything else. And they're all functioning in symbiosis because, back to my point of the Elohim, it's plural. The advent of the UFO, UAP whistleblower testimony, it's not just to get away from the Epstein stuff, ladies and gentlemen. It's a part of the deeper plot. The non-human intelligence, for what it's worth, is clearly trying to establish that it exists to the everyday person, though it does not feel they're ready for full contact. For context to why I bring this up, former Israeli space security chief Haim Ashid said basically there's a galactic federation and Trump basically is knowing about it, and there's this whole effort to disclose it when humanity is ready to understand it. And basically, it all forms into a great deception, but the scariest thing about it is the great deception upon humanity is hoisted upon radical, fundamental emanetization of the eschaton narrative thinking. To hasten the end times, they will make things happen. The Jewish network, that's the ultra powerful wealth elite in a media status pushing this Jewish extremism, is Chabad Lubavitch, and the Chabadniks control Likud and attack in the Middle East. And it's all providing a context for a small-scale nuclear exchange, World War III, where I contend that they're going to, the aliens, so to speak, are going to reveal themselves to save us from ourselves. The thing I'm concerned about is the fact that it could literally be on the level of a great deception by subterranean, ultra-terrestrials that have been here since the days of old, that did not require Christianity to function. Of course, I'm of the opinion that it is the folklore religious context that we had of old. We've just lost it and allowed the midwits of the 1800s to tell us that it's all symbolic, Manly P. Hall, Zodiac, and riddle myth, when, truth be told, these people, at the very least, they had the myth structure in its sense, but they honestly believed they were there. And there's times where they speak that they were around us. Rather they be ancient astronauts or just lived here before and possibly engineered us. You can watch the Elohim video I made. It remains to be verified, but we have all of this in this to make a conclusion for you. Is that there is a vacant president with all of this corruption, having the casino venture that put him in $2 billion personally, and I do believe it was around $2 billion in commercial debt, $4 billion overall, where the bank said he's worth more alive to them than dead. You can find that clip of the CNN interview with the representative from the banks. And these radical types are allowing the military or deep state, and that is literally just the extended continuity of government, of the military, and policies of the government and intelligence that function beyond the elected representatives for continuity's sake. Say there's a reason that the politicians, the House, Senate, and President become a compromised asset. The deep state is there for that reason. And my concern is that this warfare with Iran and Ukraine and everyone getting involved with everyone, it's already at World War III. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all it takes. What do you think that the word world and war and three would mean? All of these people are currently in a low-scale war. But it's not low-scale for Iran or Israel, you understand me? It's for us because as the United States, if we go by traditional history and don't contend with the Tartaria theory, which I respect, you're basically having nothing since Britain in 1812 with the Civil War. But you know what I'm saying. The Americans don't have that taste of despair or fear that we really should. We got Pearl Harbor, and there's reasons to believe based on documented evidence that they knew up until the president, basically 30 seconds in and more, if you study some of the surrounding ramifications of Pearl Harbor and the communications. They said, look, president, they're coming. He said, wait. And look, it was the pretext and context for war. So, these people won't stop. Do you know that the military, when they did the Manhattan Project and the things about the nuclear bomb, that basically there were serious concerns over the fact that it might ignite all of atomic structures of reality and ignite the air. They said, I don't care, and tested it. So you're dealing with people who could do shit like that. And we've nuked in the past. Don't think that... And that's the scary thing about it, because nukes are obsolete. Ladies and gentlemen, have you seen the releases from, example, Kratsios and the retreat memo? Talking about they leave the technologies they currently have behind the scenes, leaves time and space and distance annihilated. Navy talking about time-space manipulation devices and weaponry. Dr. Pais, the Pais effect, the Bofield-Brown effect and the anti-saucer craze, or anti-gravity saucer craze of the 1950s, it went underground, Tesla shit. And the shit that's admitted, they have patented technology for anti-gravity craft, people. The voice of God technology, the rods of God. I just feel that with quantum technologies, these people are light years ahead. After all, the United States Navy had admitted that it has the capability to engineer the fabric of reality. If you'd like to see on some of the capabilities that are claimed by our government, you can check that one out on my page. And the breakaway civilization technologies. They're clearly needing a context, and the pretext has arrived. They're doing, and it's dangerous because so many power players are at play. That was the thing about the business plot. You couldn't nail everything on one particular group. It became plausibly deniable, and I'm sure due to corruption, because nobody got in trouble. These same elements, they don't just disappear, people. They're running this con game in the media and the politics, paying off people, creating WWE angles. The president was on WWE shaving Vince McMahon's head, people. You need to wake up, because there are optics at play, and the Jews feel that these Hasidic extremists like Chabad Lubavitch and their adherents believe that the United States is supposed to fall for their Mashiach to even arrive. So they already have a context to be radical and try to destroy the United States, and it looks like it's working. And QAnon is just like Operation Trust, bringing me back to the very beginning of Mike Flynn making a bizarre tweet about the storm is here, and all of the rhetoric Trump has brought up about my QAnon storm dog whistles. It's dangerous. Because clearly the deep state is clearly running the Trump show. He's senile and he's egotistical. If he can manage a victory after it's all said and done before his end game to slap on his legacy, that's what he cares about. It can be like this hating on him until the end. As long as something before the end is that sweet legacy maker, Trump will do anything. I guarantee it. These types are going for broke, as Alan Zabrowski said in regards to the 9/11 event, and speaking about Alan Zabrowski to the military-industrial complex when Army War College and U.S. Marine Corps. He's saying, look, this is an all or nothing go by these people, the Zionist types, because QAnon, if you still believe in QAnon, if you're watching this and you believe the breadcrumbs of QAnon, understand that. Did you know that they actually found the IPs of the Q post, and then most of them came from Israel? They did not come from Washington, D.C. patriots. They found, like, this was a big deal when the 4chan shit was going down. Yeah, basically QAnon came from Israel. These radical types are making a heist like Grand Theft Auto, the business plot 2.0, and I'm afraid that the Heritage Foundation elite types that are the radical elements combining with an Abrahamic doctrine of Judeo-Christian, which is completely in line, despite what critics say. Because if you understand the Tanakh, the Elohim in its plurality, and the system that's represented in the Bible, without the false translations that have happened into English, if you understand the history of Mysterium Iniquitatis and trying to convert people to monotheism so that the Roman experiment under the Catholic agenda would continue the government and not let it be fractured and fissured to the point of its collapse, so they had to go through all these measures to create a narrative that wasn't biblical. But if you study the Bible, the sacrifices they make, all of the weird bloodletting and the sacrifice cannibalism and the violence is supported by it. And if you're a Christian who's opposing this Jewish question too, you don't understand. It's actually the Old Testament. You can, if you're going to be a Christian who's opposed to them, take out the Old Testament and argue your apologetics for why it's not still a flavor of the Abrahamist doctrine. He's claiming to be the anointing oil or the psychedelic anointing Dionysus, tying into the Dionysus rise and fall Dumuzi aspects of comparative mythology, which makes my greater point that the bloodline elite answer not the fallen angels, because that's not biblical, but bloodlines of different non-human intelligences that operate in, on, and around Earth. I don't know how far away it goes and where it really comes from, but it's apparent from the ancients and it's apparent now, whatever it is. And they are cherished bloodlines who are basically the stewards over mankind, and they are the Europhile bloodline Jewish elites combined with them through intermarrying and business titans who have done the same in recent years. This is the tight clique. Ladies and gentlemen, there's tight cliques. Power players and institutions and methods of maternal orders, and they're all making moves worldwide. And now we are in the pretext phase for a greater scale World War III, because, like I said before, we're already in it. And I'm not trying to jump around. I'm trying to go back to every version of what I'm saying so it's thoroughly understood the nature of what we're dealing with. And it's concerning. I started to believe that, nothing is ever going to happen. After my whole life, ever since I was a little kid, and when I was a jid, watching the damn History Channel network, I thought, man, the world's going to end real soon. And I was like that for years, consuming fear porn news. And then when I finally accept that, well, it's not even likely that anything's going to happen at all, basically, but the status quo for the hegemony, World War III starts breaking out. It's like the universe wants to just laugh at me. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, but we might be in for some rough times. And be sure to like and subscribe wherever you are at. Try to find something reasonable for your family. Remember that the Department of Homeland Security told you to prepare for at least, I think it's 6 months or 8 months without power, I think. So yeah, just be on the lookout, people. The business plot 2.0 manifesting as a fake QAnon. Great deception with the Pleiadians and Ashtar. Don't buy it. It's the Nazis and the Jews and the Elohim. Damn, son, that's it.